Chapter 3, Open Sesame. "The fourth M thing must be out there," said Annie. Beside the door was a button with the word "open" on it. Annie reached for the button. "Wait!" Jack grabbed her hand. "There's no air on the moon, remember?" "Oh, right. But we have to find out where the M thing is." "Well, let's see what the book says," said Jack. And he pulled the book out of his pack. He flipped through it until he found a page that showed the surface of the moon. He read out loud, "It takes 14 Earth days to equal 1 day on the moon. No air protects the moon from the sun's rays, so the daytime heat reaches 260 degrees. Jack looked at Annie. "I told you your blood would boil if you went out there," he said. "Yuck," said Annie. Jack read the book again. "Moon scientists wear spacesuits, which have controls to keep them from getting too hot or too cold. They have tanks, which provide 2 hours of air." "Well, where do we get some spacesuits?" asked Annie. She looked around and then trotted back to the hall. Maybe there." Jack was studying the map. "Let's try the spacesuit storeroom." "Don't look at the map," said Annie. "Look at the real room." Jack glanced up. Annie was peering through the door off the hall. "There's tons of space stuff in here," she said. Jack went to look. Bulky white suits hung from the hangers. Air tanks, helmets, gloves, and boots sat in a neat row. "Wow, it's like the armor room in the castle," said Jack. "Yeah, with huge armor," said Annie. "Let's pick out the smallest stuff," said Jack. "The suits can go over our clothes." Annie found the smallest white suit, and Jack found the next smallest. They stepped into them, and then Annie locked Jack's air tank into place. "Thanks," he said, and he did the same for her. "Thanks," she said. "Gloves," said Jack. He and Annie pulled on white gloves. "Boots," said Annie. They pulled on the huge pair of white boots. "Helmets," said Jack. He reached for the helmet. "Wow, these are pretty light," he said. "I thought they'd be like the knights' helmets." Jack and Annie put their helmets on, and they locked each other's into place. "I can't move my head, right or left," said Annie. "Me neither," said Jack. "Let's try walking." Jack and Annie moved clumsily around the room. Jack felt like a fat snowman. "Close your visor," said Annie. They both closed their see-through visors. Cool air filled Jack's helmet. "I can breathe!" Annie yelled. Her voice boomed in Jack's ear. "Ow!" "Talk quietly," Jack said. "We have two-way radios inside our helmets." "Oh, sorry," whispered Annie. Jack put the moon book back in his pack, and then he slung the pack over his shoulder. "Okay," he said. "Remember, we have only 2 hours of air in our tanks, so we need to find the fourth M really fast." "I hope we can find it," said Annie. "Me too," said Jack. He knew they could not go home until they did. "Let's go," said Annie. She gave Annie a little push. "Hey, watch it! No goofing off," he said. "We don't want to fall over in these suits." "Just go, go," said Annie, and she pushed him out of the room. They walked back to the airlock. "Ready?" said Annie. "Open sesame!" She pressed the open button. The door slowly slid closed behind them. The door opened in front of them, and Jack and Annie stepped out on the moon.